Hello, these are the news from Kazakhstan. I am Nurbek Savitakhunov. More than 1,000 people were evacuated from the Almaty airport on Monday, September 10th, due to a bomb threat via an anonymous phone call. Emergency services cordoned off the building and several flights were delayed.
Someone called and said that a bomb was planted in the airport. There was an inspection and now they are re-inspecting the luggage, and as soon as they finish, they will let us out. According to the eyewitnesses, the evacuation was announced around 6:15 p.m. In the beginning, the airport security service evacuated people with their luggage from the building, and then they moved them to the safe zone away from the terminal building. Soon after, the rescue teams, firemen and ambulances arrived to the scene. Initially, the Department of Emergency Situations reported that it was conducting a regular evacuation drill. However, the airport officials confirmed to journalists about an anonymous phone call made by someone who reported about the bomb threat. After careful inspection of the airport premises, the passengers were allowed back to the terminal building. The first flight took off to Moscow late around 9 o'clock. We just walked through the doors when one of the three men who were walking ahead of us said that there is a bomb in the airport. I thought that it was a bad joke, but the next moment I find ourselves being evacuated from the building. We were just evacuated from the airport building and nobody came to us to explain what is going on. I guess nobody will come to us. We're just sitting here and waiting for our flight, hoping to get to our home. We were supposed to depart 15 minutes ago.
4 suspects are arrested in connection with the September 5th bombing in Atyrau. They are charged with terrorism and attempt to commit a crime.
Last Sunday, the regional courthouse sanctioned the arrest of the suspect for the term of 2 months. 3 of the detained are from the regional capital and 1 is from Mangistau region. It is also known that all of the arrested are followers of the radical branch of Islam. On September 5th, 2012, a man was killed as a result of an explosion in one of the apartment buildings in Atyrau. One of the versions is that it was a suicide bomber, but officials do not confirm this information. The court of the Atyrau sanctioned the arrest of 3 persons from Jail district of the Mangistau region who are suspected of perpetrating the crime punishable by law in accordance with Article 24 and 233 of the Criminal Code, terrorist acts conducted with the use of explosive devices. They're also being charged in creating and managing a criminal and terrorist group.
The name of Atyrau businessman whose companies won tenders for government contracts worth $800 million was revealed. It is local deputy chairman of the Ethno-Cultural Association Tkhonyil and owner of a major building company US 99 along with other small companies, Vladimir Pak.
Yesterday, the general prosecutor Askat Daulbayev said that in the recent 5 years, the same group of affiliated companies had won the biggest tenders for the construction of housing, water and gas pipelines, roads, schools and other social facilities. The inspection revealed that in most cases, the same person was involved. However, the head of the supervisory authority didn't disclose the name and the interest of the investigation. Now the name of the successful businessman was made public. In addition to the above-mentioned regalia, Mr. Park is the son-in-law of the ex-head of Atyrau region, Bergay Daskaliev, and part-time deputy.
Head of North Kazakhstan Region Financial Police failed an unscheduled certification. Nurlan Auganbayev will be dismissed, notes the department's regional office.
Auganbayev was one of 6 financial police officials who were found underqualified and recommended for dismissal. It is worth noticing that Auganbayev is a prominent figure in law enforcement agencies. He held senior leadership positions throughout his entire professional activity. He was a deputy of the former head of financial police, Kairat Kozhamzharov, and was considered as his protege. Besides, Auganbayev investigated the Khorgos case, the criminal case against the former Minister of Health, Jaksolik Doskaliev. Rumors about a possible staff reshuffle in the financial police spread after Rashid Tusubekov joined the agency in January 2012. Back then, some publications predicted that Kozhamzharov's crew would be forced out from the department. Colonel Auganbayev's performance appraisal failure indeed has been an indirect confirmation, although it should be noted that some experts had complained about the colonel's working methods earlier.
New details in the Arkan tragedy were obtained by Interfax news agency. The outpost commander's gun found at the scene of the tragedy was not listed in the National Security Committee's database, while the caliber of the shell casings does not meet the standards of Kazakhstan's army weapons. Neither the press nor the attorneys are able to confirm or deny this information. Speculations continue in the next story.
Since there is no official information, media has to rely on what the confidential sources say. New details in the case of the border guard Vladislav Chelach were published by Interfax. The handgun that belonged to the commander of the outpost allegedly wasn't properly registered at the armory of the NSC's border service. Information also emerged that the Arkan-Kirgen outpost that burned down in May was fired at from two sides. According to the information published by News.ru, all the suspicious details are regularly given to the president of Kazakhstan. Agency sources claim that the machine guns cartridges cases found at the scene of the massacre were not of the 5.45mm caliber, as in the firearms that Kazakh border guards are equipped with, but were of the standard used by NATO 5.56mm. This information has yet to be confirmed by officials. Private Chelach is being charged with the murder of 15 people and burning the border outpost. His attorney Vasily Rezvan says that the defense has a lot of questions to the investigation, but almost all of their requests have been declined. During the investigation, there were various contradictory versions of what kind of gun was found on the surviving soldier, whether it was a machine gun or a hand pistol. Did Chelach confront the law enforcement, or was he just found at the scene? Attorney Rezvan counts over 100 of such contradictions, but the investigators do not have answers to these yet.
Это имеются признаки использования оружия, не принадлежащего военнослужащим пограничных войск Республики Казахстан.
All these signs point to the use of firearms that didn't belong to the servicemen of the Kazakhstan Border Service, which clearly indicates the intervention of the outside forces. The scale of the massacre is very big. The hit factor is very high. If you factor in the number of cartridges found and the number of hits in the bodies, you get the figure of 80 to 90%, which is very high and indicate that high-caliber professionals were involved.
Получается 80-90%. То есть так стреляют суперпрофессионалы.
Media cannot yet find out from the investigation what models of firearms were found at the scene and who it belonged to. Law enforcement also keeps silence on the issue of DNA tests on the remains of 3 victims of the tragedy. We don't have much information. Call the border services and ask them. We do not have information on Chelach's case. All information is with the military prosecutor's office.
Следствием занимаются они, поэтому все у них документы, все у них.
However, some media outlets regularly publish the materials of the case. Attorneys think that the main goal of such publications is to discredit Chelach and create a negative image of the border guard. Vladislav Chelach's relatives are planning to sue the author of one of the programs on KTK channel.
Чтобы он публично извинился и сказал, кто ему передал эти все сведения.
I want a public apology, and I want to hear from him where he got all of the information that is supposed to be confidential and closed. How could he publish the results of the investigatory experiment in a live broadcast? This is the breach of the constitutional law and the criminal and procedural codes. The secrecy of the investigation should be kept until the moment of the court hearings. During the last 4 months, there have been numerous versions of the tragedy at Arkan-Kirgen outpost. Some spoke of Chinese subversives, some of the VIP hunters, religious extremists, Russian special forces, smugglers, and also blamed Western special services in conspiring against the top brass of the NSC. The latest version has aliens as possible perpetrators, but attorneys say that they only use the version of the attack on the outpost.
Kazakhstan's consul to the Russian Federation will meet with Ilya Pyanzin, who is charged with attempting to assassinate President Vladimir Putin, reported Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman Altai Bibulaev at a Monday briefing. According to him, the Kazakh citizen has no complaints about the conditions of his confinement.
Как мы удостоверились, состояние здоровья Ильи Пянзина удовлетворительно, жалоб на здоровье он не имеет.
We do confirm that Ilya Pyanzin is in a good state of health. He has no complaints. He is receiving required medical aid. His current detention conditions are in line with the generally accepted norms.
Гигиенические условия, жалоб и претензий на условия содержания также не имеется.
On Monday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed the information about the disappearance of 2 Kazakh students who left to the United States as participants of the work and travel program. Young men did not get in touch with their relatives for 2 days, so they raised an alarm. Later, the students were found by their friends via online social networks.
The trial over inciting social hatred continued in Aktau on Monday with Alga opposition party leader's testimony. Vladimir Kozlov's questioning is entering its 3rd day. The indictment is written on more than 1,000 pages, causing the main defendant to thoroughly stop at each item.
Vladimir Kozlov dedicated his today's speech to the goals of the opposition party and told of his first meeting with politician Mukhtar Ablazov. They spoke about the teleconference which Ablazov had via Skype with party activists. Kozlov told that the businessman had a great experience of government service and it would be foolish not to use it. In addition to this, they also spoke of other post-Soviet countries where the peaceful revolutions changed the image of these countries beyond recognition. Vladimir Kozlov reminded to the court that the reform realized by Roza Tumbayeva in the neighboring Kyrgyzstan was first suggested by Democratic Choice of Kazakhstan in 2003. Below is the excerpt of Vladimir Kozlov's speech. Roza Tumbayeva realized the reform that we proposed in Democratic Choice of Kazakhstan in 2003. This is the idea of transitional presidency. Society has to elect a person that will not strive for the power in the country. This should be the person without the negative past, the person who society can trust. In 2003, we had Serikbalsyn Abdildin in mind as such a person. In continuation of the theme of the same teleconference, the leader of Alga Party said that they discussed at length how to avoid the mistakes of Kyrgyzstan, Ukraine and Georgia and analyzed how to use the experience of neighbors. The party even piloted its own project, the People's Delegate, in order to reform the existing political system in the country. Vladimir Kozlov cited the facts to support his speech. The poll conducted by Alga Party members showed that not everything is rosy in the country. Over 90% of those polled didn't know the names of any parliament members or members of the regional parliaments, not to say what they did to their electorate. Activists of Alga Party invited to Zhanaozen the members of the parliament from Mangistau to show them the situation in the region. According to Kozlov, none of the 7 deputies responded to the invitation. Everyone now knows what was the result of this, noted the defendant bitterly. After Zhanaozen, the similar situations happened on the factories of Kazakhmys, but there the management was far more competent. During the meeting with the workers, they didn't blame them in the wrong behavior and sorted out the situation without calling in their bosses from the ministry.
Politician and businessman Mukhtar Ablazov filed a motion to appear as a witness in the trial. In a statement published on Respublika website, Ablazov refers to criminal code provisions which state that any person with any knowledge of the case may appear as a witness, or if their presence in the courtroom is impossible, then the questioning may be conducted via video conference. The politician notes that he can shed light on the illegal recording of his Skype conversation with Alga Party activists, around which the prosecution is building its case. Ablazov is also willing to comment on case materials in connection with his person. The banker's previous motion was declined.
I'm ready to present the facts of the case which may contribute to the comprehensive, complete and objective process, and I demand the judge Mirzabekov to give me the opportunity to be heard.
Well-known Kazakh stage director Bolat Atabayev returned to Almaty from Germany. Immediately after his return, Atabayev planned to attend the hearings over Vladimir Kozlov's case, but was forced to attend to restoring his documents instead. Last week in the city of Köln, 2 unidentified individuals stole his bag. The police is searching for the thieves.
It was my mistake to post on Facebook that I was cutting short my trip and going to Aktau to testify in court. My friends admonished me against posting this. I was certain that they would not get me in Germany, but they did, and they stole my bag. They stole my bag on a train where thefts are very rare. Bolat Atabayev is not satisfied with the testimony that was read out during Kozlov's, Aminov's and Sapargali's trial. He insisted on testifying in Kazakh. However, his testimony during the trial was read out in Russian. The stage director is certain that the translation is not accurate. No one asked for his signature to confirm that the translation was adequate. Now the stage director wants to question the testimony read out by the investigation and call the court's attention to other materials of the case, namely the recording of his conversation with Kozlov. In our conversation, he made it clear that all talks of armed uprising or any armed conflict must be out of the question, as this would not lead to any good. He referred to Al-Qaeda as an example. They were murderers and criminals. This is not the way to come to power. It is all written there, and I'm wondering why they are not voicing it.
Human Rights Watch concluded that authorities reacted poorly to the oil workers' strike. The organization's activists visited the rebellious region, spoke with Karajan Basmunay, Ozenmonay Gaz, and Yersay Caspian contractor employees. During the demonstrations, a total of 2,000 oil workers were sacked from the 3 companies.
Human rights defenders are convinced that the rights of oil workers are being violated, blaming not only the company leadership but also the government. According to the report, it is risky to partner with a country that intimidates, oppresses and imprisons its citizens.
And finally, Human Rights Watch documented how
The authorities of Kazakhstan have implemented restrictive legal provisions on the freedom of assembly in order to easily arrest opposition activists and others who participated in public protests and those who traveled to the west of Kazakhstan to monitor or to support the oil workers.
this tragic outbreak.
It's been more than a year since the first strike took place, but the situation in Mangistau region remains tense, according to recent reports. Internet portal Azadtik posted an article about the discontented workers of Zhut Oil Transportation Company, one of the subsidiaries of Kazmunaygas. The employees wrote a letter to the leadership complaining about low pay and working conditions. Later, they were forced to write the exemption letter, while the problems of those who were first to go on strike in May 2011 have not yet been resolved. The former employee of Karajan-Basmunay Kasimbek Bakhtigiriyev informed us over the phone that he's been on a job hunt for 16 months already. Along with the other laid-off workers, he comes to see the leadership of Karajan-Basmunay on a regular basis, but to no avail. There are 28 of us on the list. Nothing has been decided yet. Around 10 to 15 of us get together constantly, while the rest simply cannot afford the trip. We've heard no promises so far. Nobody came to see us. On June 27, they told us that they will solve this issue in July. However, August went by. It's already September, yet we still haven't heard anything.
The more petrodollars a country earns, the less political rights and civil liberties it sees, says the global city financial company.
Furthermore, according to research analysts, Kazakhstan is in the list of states that have a weaker protection from low oil prices as compared to other states. According to city forecasts, the price of black gold will remain high in the market for the next 2-3 years, and then it will decline to $80 to $90 per barrel. For most countries, it is acceptable price though, but it is not for Kazakhstan, Russia and Nigeria. Kazakhstan's economy, for example, may feel comfortable only at a price of $90 per barrel, and the critical price point for the economy would be $60 per barrel.
Preparations for another forum of interregional cooperation between Kazakhstan and Russia, with the participation of heads of states, is at full swing in Pavlodar. The agenda of the meeting was not yet voiced. However, Pavlodar residents already discussed the most incredible rumors. More details to come next.
I heard that they're going to build a nuclear power plant. I heard that they're looking to dump the nuclear waste in some place in Pavlodar. Well, we heard that the President's security service arrived here a few weeks prior to the forum to clean up the city. The word is, they got rid of homeless people and stray dogs. Long before the opening of the forum, the city residents already speculate on the upcoming meeting between Nazarbayev and Putin. The rumors insist that Pavlodar is allegedly going to be rented to Russia or exchanged for Orenburg. Moreover, some citizens believe that the nuclear power plant and the nuclear waste will be stored in the region. However, the regional governor, Yerlan Arın, has refuted all the rumors. First of all, the president shut down the nuclear test site over 20 years ago, therefore there won't be any of them established on the territory of Kazakhstan. Secondly, there are no plans to build a nuclear power plant in Pavlodar region. And finally, we're not planning to have the so-called tails or the waste of nuclear power plants in the Pavlodar region. The law enforcement agency had to dispel some rumors as well. Apparently, the people were afraid of curfews and closing of long-distance roads during the forum. The chief policeman of the region reassured the Pavlodar residents that none of this is going to happen. Of course, the city is not going to be closed down. The citizens will be working in the regular mode. Certainly, some streets will be blocked to ensure the convenience and security of the guests.
To air or not to air, Kazakh MPs are yet again raising the censorship issue regarding children. To recap, at the first session of the season, the MPs drafted the bill on the protection of children from harmful information. The public was split into two. More details come in the next report.
Madina Zhirinbay has 2 of her own children and more students at the school. Therefore, the teacher is very concerned about what they see on TV. She doesn't approve much on TV and internet content. The teenagers are exposed to much of information that is not meant for their age and in fact is harmful, with the abundance of violence and sex. Therefore, at home, Madina usually watches TV together with her kids. Hearing about the new bill made the teacher happy. She says that movies and TV shows shall promote a sense of patriotism, respect for elders and honesty. I believe it is a good thing. All parents need to support such appropriate laws to ensure that our children receive secure information only. In the meantime, Adina's young family member has been sitting around and listening for the interview. The 6th grader Saya understands the concern of the adults. She hasn't learned the word censorship yet, but the idea of filtering the information seemed to surprise her. None of the parents can ban us from watching. We can watch anything on the internet in case they don't show it on TV. We know what we're doing. The issue of TV parental control is going to be actively discussed in Kazakhstan, especially with the neighboring Russia setting the example. The members of the State Duma decided to ban scenes that they believe promote smoking, drug addiction and alcoholism. This even affected the Soviet cartoons. So now the children in Russia watched a shortened version of cartoon series called Nu Pogodi. The censorship cut off all scenes with the wolf smoking a cigarette. The Little Red Riding Hood cartoon was also found to contain some inappropriate moments. However, in Kazakhstan, the authorities decided not to be as radical when approaching this matter. Instead of fixing something from the past, the developers suggest to focus on recent releases. We're not going to check the cartoons which already passed the Soviet censorship. Instead, we need to monitor what has been released these days. The bill is currently under consideration by MPs. Should it be adopted starting next year, all TV channels of Kazakhstan would have to censor anything that can damage the immature child's mind. But what about the internet? This question still remains unattended.
Journalists marked the 54th anniversary of International Journalistic Solidarity. In Almaty, they honored the memory of late colleagues with a moment of silence and launched balloons to the sky as a reminder of freedom of speech.
It is not safe to be a journalist in Kazakhstan these days, and statistics support this claim. This was voiced today at the press conference in Almaty. The specialist of the Cluster Bureau of UNESCO, the head of the Journalists' Union and president of the International Foundation of the Freedom of Speech, Adil Sos, stressed that only in the period from the beginning of this year there were 15 attacks on reporters in the country. Correspondent Lukman Akhmedyarov was almost killed in Uralsk. Criminals were not found in all cases. Speakers at a press conference also noted the lack of solidarity among journalists themselves and problems with the existing legislation. We would like to see the complex of the reforms. We want changes in the civil, criminal and administrative codes, changes in the legislation on mass media, TV, radio and internet. They keep patching up the law on mass media, but all changes are minor. According to the statistics, in the past 8 months, journalists of different media outlets were detained and threatened. 102 cases of blocking and restricting access to websites was registered, 31 cases of obstruction of the lawful professional activities, 14 cases of persecution and criminal prosecution against journalists. During this year, journalists received 170 rejections and limitations to provide public information.
A billiards tournament and a hike were organized by the colleagues and friends of the late politician Altunbek Sarsenbayev for his 50th anniversary. People recall that Sarsenbayev was just 44 when he was killed, and he was the one who could bring some liberal values to the socio-political life of the country and possibly prevent numerous tragic events in the history of the country. More details in the next report.
Altunbek Sarsenbayev's commemoration week continued with playing billiards and recalling a prominent politician. Leisurely striking cue balls, his friends and colleagues remembered. Altunbek Sarsenbayev was a distinguished figure in the political life of Kazakhstan. The member of Social Democratic Party Amirjan Kasanov wonders what the social activist's political life would be had he not died so tragically. 6 years have passed since his death. However, I cannot stop thinking what his political life would be. I wonder whether he would be still involved in politics as he climbed to the heights of power and was one of the ideological leaders of the country, or would he oppose the ruling power? Perhaps he would take any other position closer to the people and free of political and personal intrigues. In between competition, public activist Arigen Zhukev tried to answer this question. The ex-head of the Security Council says that Altunbek Sarsenbayev used to be a global thinker. Today, both the authorities and opposition lack people like him. His ideas and organizational skills could unite disparate structures and benefit the country. It goes without saying that no one can change the course of history, neither we nor those who are ruling the country. History has its goals, and he was able to make creative changes in the opposition, and he intellectually adjusted some actions of the government. He wanted the government to take the path of liberalization and criticize the practices of persecuting the opposition. That's what he always did during his life. Altunbek Sarsimbayev took great interest in billiards and specifically Russian pool. His friends and associates say that he was able to think better with a cue in his hands and could find solutions to highly strategic issues. Besides pool, Altunbek Sarsimbayev also played football and basketball. During weekends, he would go hiking in Jayli Alatau. Last weekend, about 50 of politicians' friends and associates took the road in the Ile-Alatau Park to climb the mountains. Following the politician's death, the road along the picturesque scenery was named Sarsimbayev's Path. Altunbek often took this path, sometimes by himself. Whenever he had free time, he would come here, sometimes even twice a week. A day before his death, Altunbek Sarsimbayev was going to take his favorite mountain path. It was in the foothills of Jayli Alatau, where by a tragic coincidence, in February 2006, the politician, his driver and bodyguard were found dead. Yerzhan Utimbayev was found guilty of organizing a triple murder and sentenced to 20 years of jail. Rustam Ibragimov, the perpetrator, received a life sentence. Associates, independent experts and relatives are still certain that Sarsimbayev's assassination was politically motivated and had nothing to do with the official version. However, people will not learn the truth until after the political regime is changed, and changing the regime was a lifetime goal pursued by Sarsimbayev.
A festival titled Almaty, My First Love was held in the city over the weekend. More than 4,000 people gathered at the event. The festival was opened by the daughter of the president, Darigan Nazarbayeva, and Almaty mayor Akhmedjan Yesimov, first as hosts and then singers.
Besides her solo work, the parliamentarian sang a popular song, 100 Steps Back, in duet with Valery Miladze. It is worth noting that the head of the Almaty city administration distinguished himself this year by performing 2 pieces on a synthesizer. One of the melodies he played was a soundtrack to the movie Godfather. The moment of fame for Kazakh officials has not ended yet. The Prime Minister sang in duet with Dolkun Sabirova. It should be noted that all of the performers were lip-syncing, and the show organizers had warned about it earlier.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.